Here. So hello everyone, I am Charlie and welcome to the Charlie Tolhurst show. Just apologise, I forgot to press the live button there, but we're on the air now. I'm joined by Labour Party supporter Zach James to round up all the latest news this week. Hello Zach.
Hi Charlie, hello mate.
Now, to all the listeners out there, as I said, I'm on location tonight from the Radcliffe Hotel in Warwickshire at Warwick University, refereeing for England squash this weekend. But let's put aside squash. We're going to be talking about general topics, including politics and sport this week. Now, if you ask me, I want to start off with we'll come on to Boris's. We'll start with Partygate, shall we? Boris Johnson faced a pretty angry Keir Starmer this week in Parliament, and I have to say, if you saw what happened, is our Prime Minister facing a battle to stay in power? Now, last year it was emerged that Boris Johnson attended a lockdown party full of birthday cake. He was given a birthday cake by mistake, and he was fined for that breach. There has been a pretty rapturous debate over the last couple of days in Parliament, with many MPs, including the leader of the opposition, Sir Keir Starmer, who is also the Labour Party leader, and also the leader of the Scottish National Party for Westminster, Ian Blackford, calling for Boris Johnson's resignation. Zach, where do you stand with those opposition leaders, and also the motion that passed in the House of Commons yesterday, or the other day, which refers Boris Johnson to the Peerages Committee?
Privilege Committee, yes indeed, Charlie. I think, my opinion overall, Charlie, it was totally the right thing to do. This has been an embarrassing week for Number 10. It's been an embarrassing week for the whip operations, Charlie. No doubt about it. I thought this new Number 10 operation in whipping operation was supposed to be much stronger than it previously was, Charlie. Remember Mark Spencer's cheap for it? He's now gone, obviously. A few weeks ago, he was replaced by Chris Heaton-Harris, in the mini reshuffle. That whipping operation doesn't seem to get any better, Charlie. Because Speaker this week ruled that a motion to hold Boris in contempt of the House of Parliament could be tabled. However, the opposition parties decided to do something a little bit different relating to Partygate. They decided to table a motion referring Boris Johnson to the Privilege Committee. That's a committee investigating MPs and some of the action, what actions they may have done, any offences, whether they've misled the House, and what punishment they can face. Now, before Thursday's vote, actually, Charlie, it looked like that the opposition was going to put a motion down, and then the Conservative Party would whip their MPs to vote against it. Now, that appeared to be the case. And then it all started falling away on Wednesday, Charlie. The motion was tabled. It was a pretty tight motion by the opposition that they put down, listing the specifics of what Boris said in the House of Commons about the allegations of partying and all that sort of thing. This was all before the police came out and fined Boris Johnson. It listed all the allegations of that. And it also, the motion listed whether that Boris Johnson should be referred to the Privilege Committee after the police investigation has finished. That's very important, because the original motion wasn't going to mention that. Then the leader of the opposition amended the motion to say, wait for the police operation to finish, and then the Privilege investigation could complete. Sorry, my dog's going off in the background. You may not be here. That's okay. But he's a bit of a loud one tonight. But nevertheless, Charlie, that was originally going to be free. Then Wednesday evening, now I thought I'd go through the process here. The Conservative Party did put down an amendment to amend the motion, saying that Boris has apologised to the House, blah de blah de blah, and that the motion and the amendment would say that it would only be bringing the Privilege Committee after the police investigation and the Sue Gray report is finished. But it also contained a specific bit of information, Charlie. Where it said that the House will be subject to a further vote whether to refer it to the Privilege Committee or not after everything has been released and come out and everything like that. Oh dear, excuse me. So, but it really was a bit of a delaying tactic in some ways, because this would, so you vote on one motion, Charlie, and then when the time comes, you vote on another motion. You never know, Tory MPs could have just voted it down. That was the number 10 position on Wednesday evening. Then Thursday morning, just I think this was like half an hour before the motion was going to be debated, Charlie, they dropped the amendment, and the 3-line whip to vote for the amendment became a 1-line whip where all the Conservative MPs were told to abstain or go home. And my understanding from what I read, Charlie, is that that there was a big rebellion potentially against the Conservative Party, because Tory MPs were fearing a Owen Paterson Part 2, Charlie. If you remember, Owen Paterson was disciplined by the Standards Committee and was recommended with a 30-day suspension. The Tories, remember, tried to amend that so that he would give a right of appeal. And at the time, everyone was saying that looked like he was letting their mates off and everything like that. And it went down really badly, Charlie. It got really tension. It looked really bad that the Tories had to, unfortunately, U-turn and just let the amendment go, the motion go through. So I think there was a big rebellion in that part, Charlie, because of the possible implications of what was going to happen if they allowed a kind of Owen Paterson Mark II to happen. So, yeah, unfortunately, the government whips failed to read the room, Charlie. And so whatever they were playing, they decided to drop by Thursday morning. So it was a humiliating U-turn. It was a humiliating, just a humiliating operation overall, Charlie, by the whips, number 10, because they've been outflanked by the opposition, Labour certainly as well, Charlie, on every bit they've done this week. They've been outflanked by their own MPs. They've been outflanked by the Labour Party, by the opposition. They've been totally outflanked, Charlie, on the way. It's been a humiliating week for number 10 overall because of the whipping operations and for not reading the mood of their MPs, Charlie. So what happens now is, because the motion has passed, Boris Johnson will be referred to the Privileged Committee after the police investigation has finished. The chair, Chris Bryant, is not going to be involved in that because he has recused himself, Charlie, from the investigation. So we don't know who else is going to take over as the chair of the Privileged Committee whilst Boris Johnson is being investigated. It could be it will have to be a Labour MP, because the rules state, Charlie, that an opposition MP has to lead the Privileged Committee. So it will probably be another Labour MP as a replacement, Charlie. Obviously, Chris Bryant recused himself because he made comments before the investigation had even begun. So therefore, he recused himself from the investigation as to not do a conflict of interest and to prejudge the outcome of a report. So yeah, number 10 tried to argue that because it was a Labour MP chairing it, which, by the way, that's no excuse, Charlie, because a Labour MP has to chair the Privileged Committee under common rules. Then it's number 10 have not got their way, unfortunately, on this time, Charlie. They've embarrassed themselves into a corner. They've humiliated themselves into a corner, Charlie, overall. And yeah, the result is that Boris Johnson is facing 3 investigations at the moment, Charlie. He's facing the Hugh Gray report. He's facing the police report still, which is still ongoing, by the way. And he's going to face a Privilege Committee investigation where he knowingly misled the House, Charlie. And if that Privilege Report Committee says that he knowingly misled, then he's going to be in serious trouble, Charlie.
Zach, I think Boris is certainly facing a big rebellion from the opposition and certainly his own party as well. And yeah, it's clear to me that the Prime Minister is facing another investigation. Could he be back again? Could there be more parties? He could be fined for those. He might have to go back into the Commons and make another apology. I feel like the PM's waning thin on his time in office. We know actually this week that Mark Harper, who used to be the former chief whip to David Cameron, actually submitted a letter of no confidence in Boris Johnson, posting his letter to Graham Brady, who's the chair of the 1922 committee. So yeah, he's certainly facing a big rebellion. And whilst I'm here, guys, I'm going to play for you this video of exactly what happened during this testy exchange in the House of Commons. Have a listen to this.
Let me begin in all humility by saying that on the 12th of April, I received a fixed penalty notice relating to an event in Downing Street on the 19th of June 2020. I paid the fine immediately, and I offered the British people a full apology. And I take this opportunity on the first available sitting day to repeat my wholehearted apology to the House. As soon as I received the notice, I acknowledged the hurt and the anger. And I said that people had a right to expect better of their Prime Minister. Let me also say, not by way of mitigation or excuse, but purely because it explains my previous words in this House, that it did not occur to me then or subsequently that a gathering in the Cabinet room just before a vital meeting on COVID strategy could amount to a breach of the rules. I repeat, that was my mistake, and I apologise for it unreservedly.
What a joke. Even now, as the latest mealy-mouthed apology stumbles out of one side of his mouth, a new set of deflections and distortions pour from the other. But the damage is already done. The public have made up their mind. They don't believe a word the Prime Minister says. They know what he is. For all those unfamiliar with this Prime Minister's career, this isn't some fixable glitch in the system. It's the whole point. It's what he does. It's who he is. He knows he's dishonest and incapable of changing, so he drags everybody else down with him. The more people deface themselves, parroting is
order. What I would say is, I think they said dishonest. I don't think that's an appropriate word to be. I think I will make. We don't want to talk about breaking rules, do we? I don't think that's a good time to discuss. I just say, I think if he just withdraws that and works around it, I'm sure that with the knowledge that he's gained over many, many years, he can use appropriate words that is in keeping with good temperate language of this House. Keir Starmer.
Mr. Speaker, I respect that ruling from the chair. The Prime Minister knows what he is. Plenty didn't agree with every rule the Prime Minister wrote, but they followed them nonetheless. Because in this country, we respect others. We put the greater good above narrow self-interest, and we understand that the rules apply to all of us. This morning, I spoke to John Robinson, a constituent of the member for Lichfield. I want to tell you his story. When his wife died of COVID, John and his family obeyed the Prime Minister's rules. He didn't see her in hospital. He didn't hold her hand as she died. Their daughters and grandchildren drove 100 miles up the motorway, clutching a letter from the funeral director in case they were questioned by the police. They didn't have a service in the church. John's son-in-law stayed away because he would have been the forbidden seventh mourner. Doesn't the Prime Minister realise that John would have given the world to hold his dying wife's hand, even if it was just for 9 minutes? But he didn't, because he followed the Prime Minister's rules. Rules that we now know the Prime Minister blithely, repeatedly and deliberately ignored. After months of insulting excuses, today's half-hearted apology will never be enough for John Robinson, If the Prime Minister had any respect for John and the millions like him who sacrificed everything to follow the rules, he'd resign.
The Prime Minister accepted the Health Secretary's resignation for breaking guidance, COVID guidance, not COVID laws. The Prime Minister then accepted Allegra Stratton's resignation for joking that the parties that were so frequent in Downing Street were actually a business event. He's now using her joke as his defence. Why is he holding himself to lower standards than he held the people whose resignations he accepted to?
Mr. Speaker, all I can say is that I apologise for what I got wrong. And I've explained to the House why I spoke in the House as I did. And what I want to do is to get on with the job of the government in taking this country forward. And that is what we're going to do.
Thank you there to the House of Commons and Parliament for a testy exchange between the leader of the opposition and the Prime Minister. Zach, what did you take away from that crucial debate then?
Well, what I took away from that is obviously Boris Johnson is going to fight on as well. His strategy here, Charlie, is to basically, well, I've apologised. I've paid my fixed penalty notice. Let's move on. That sort of his blustering, deflective attitude of things in that debate, Charlie, was the leader of oppositions and the rest of them are just not letting it go. And especially the Labour MPs like Angela Eagle, for example, Charlie, rightly point out that the likes of Matt Hancock resigned because he broke the spirit of the guideline, not the actual rules, but the spirit of the guideline. Neil Ferguson resigned because he saw someone else when he wasn't supposed to. He took responsibility and resigned. The Scottish Chief Medical Officer at the time also broke rules, resigned after being
Beth Rigby, another one from Sky News.
Kay Burley, yes, it's well, Charlie. Good point. They took responsibility. That the Sky actually punished them. They actually gave them a punishment. They didn't resign, but they gave them a punishment as a consequence, which they accepted. So they were off air for a number of months as a consequence. But nevertheless, Charlie, they accepted their consequence and they did the right thing and accept the punishment. The Prime Minister, for example, was broke more. Let's just say the Prime Minister's offence in this instance, Charlie, is bigger than, say, Matt Hancock's offence and Neil Ferguson's offence. And yet, has he resigned?
No.
He has not resigned at all. And he's using Ukraine and everything else, whatever excuse he comes up with, as a reason not to go. Well, as I said before, Charlie, during the Second World War, or just before that, the UK, the Conservative Party, got rid of Neville Chamberlain and put in Winston Churchill during the middle of a war. They got rid of Margaret Thatcher whilst there was a war overseas going on. So, that was still happening. They managed to get Tony Blair. They managed to get rid of Tony Blair during the Iraq War. Gordon Brown came in. It was all for other reasons, but Tony Blair decided to stand down himself. He just wanted to go. So it wasn't punished or anything, but it still gives you an example, Charlie, of them replacing their leaders during the middle of a war. So this argument that you cannot replace a leader during the middle of the war is nonsense, Charlie. It's complete and absolute nonsense. There are perfectly legitimate reasons to get rid of your leaders if you think they're doing crap during the middle of the war. Conservative Party can do that. They can get rid of Johnson, put someone else in, and they could take the same approach to Ukraine as what the current Prime Minister has had. But I think the trouble for the Conservative Party is, in their view, there's no one suitable to take over. I mean, yes,
not really.
You got your Ben Wallace's, you got your Tom Tugendhats, you got your Savage Javids as potential leadership contenders, maybe in a Jeremy Hunt in there as well. But interesting enough, Charlie, they don't think they're all good enough, so they're keeping the prime minister because the prime minister's attitude is just to get through it all, and all the Conservative MP success is based on that. So Charlie, it's strange. It's really strange. I think they're completely reading the mood of the nation. I think, Charlie, on Partygate, they totally are, and I think they're completely reading the mood. I think there was a James Johnson, who's a previous number 10 pollster who worked for Theresa May, that works at a polling company, a very reliable and a very good polling company. He did the focus group, Charlie. And one of the words that was most associated was Boris Johnson was liar. Literally, there's a word bubble, Charlie. There's a big word bubble that they put out. And the one word in this focus group that they all associated with Boris Johnson was liar. So if that's what the focus groups and the mood of the nation is saying, I mean, how can you seriously stay on and suggest everything's all right? Yes, lad, I'm going to continue. Whilst, the public out there is calling you a load of names and is completely disliking you.
Yeah, I can tell that. And obviously another prime minister that stood down, Winston Churchill, actually, after the Second World War. Clement Attlee actually won an election that year. It was actually a historic election win for Labour that year as well, that took him to prime minister. But yes, Zach, as you said, Boris Johnson's in trouble. I must admit, I do think Boris is in trouble, and I do think if he's found to have broken rules, I do think he's probably going to have to go. It's a shame, but I'm afraid you've got an issue that. But obviously, it's going to be interesting. Comment down below, guys, what you make of the Partygate. Do you think Boris Johnson should stay or do you think he should go? Please comment down below. Love to hear your opinions on that. Moving on now, second part of this opening part of the show. We're going to come on to the Trump and Morgan interview later on. We're going to talk about the Russia and Ukraine crisis now. Russia's invasion of Ukraine. The battle for Donbass has begun. Yes, the battle for Donbass, as Volodymyr Zelensky, the Ukrainian president, calls it. And, well, we have a latest feed of news from Ukraine we're going to come on to in a minute. But, Zach, the question I'm going to ask you is to do with Mariupol, one of the most besieged cities in Ukraine, the one that Russians have continued shelling for ages. Do you think President Putin is right to declare this city his?
Not yet, Charlie. Not yet. It clears that Russia are close to taking over Mariupol, Charlie. It does feel like it's close, but it's not there yet. And what they're doing, Charlie, is the strategy of the Russians here is to basically surround this little steel plant which they have in Mariupol. All the other areas are taken, by the way. All the other areas are surrounded. But they managed to box in this steel plant, Charlie, that's home to thousands of Ukrainians, and basically trap them. In other words, trap them in. And rather than destroy it, just basically trap all the Russians in, the Ukrainians in, so they can't get out. Now, that job hasn't been fully complete yet. So Mariupol is still in the Ukrainian hands, unlike what Vladimir Putin claims. But it is close to Russian hands. Let me just tell you, it is very close to Russian hands. Now, as you can see here, Charlie, there's been other action today as well. Odessa, that's the official name, Odessa, has been hit by missiles today, by the looks of it, Charlie, as well. It looks like the Russians are going to try and refocus their areas there, Charlie.
That's a war crime. They've killed a baby. That's horrible.
They've killed a baby. Yeah, they've hit an apartment and they've killed 8 others as well. So, yeah, it's clearly another set of war crimes that are going... that's clearly going on there, Charlie. And that's that's shocking. It really is shocking, obviously, Charlie. What's going on there, and it's still being committed as well. So I think there's going to be more evidence of that, and it's clear to me, Charlie, that Russia doesn't feel done with some of these areas as well. It really feels like they're just teasing the areas to come back. They will think reoffend these areas eventually. Obviously, their target moment is Donbass region in that area. But I even think they're struggling in Donbass at the moment, Charlie, because I think the UK intelligence on that is that the Russians are providing some the Ukrainians are providing some resistance to Russian offensives in that region. So yeah, it clearly, even with all the resources the Russians are moving into one single smaller area, the Ukrainians are getting weapons. The US has put another £800 million of aid to Ukraine. UK's got another set of aid as well. So yeah, Charlie, this is working for Ukraine still. It's looking good, but Mariupol, this is critical that they keep Mariupol, Charlie, because if not, then God knows what's going to happen there. What that could mean for other areas, Charlie.
Yeah. There's a lot of news on here, Zach, I'm just going to go through whilst we're here. Civilian casualties in Russia shells Kharkiv as well. Need 2 months of Russian shelling that city's gone under. It killed 2 people, injured 19. That was according to regional governor Ole Sahunvu as well. Russia could deploy nuclear arms but won't use them, says President Volodymyr Zelensky. We've seen this week that the Smarat 2 missile was launched in Russia as a nuclear missile was launched as a test. Vladimir Putin called it a test, called the West to keep an eye out for it. We're coming for you, in other words. The Odessa missile strike death toll now rises to 8. That was according to Volodymyr Zelensky as well. He also called don't hold pseudo-referendum in occupied areas. That includes, I believe, Kherson, which is a Russian-occupied city now. That was actually taken over by Russia. Now, also, that was announced at 6:47 this evening, Antony Blinken, who is the US Secretary of State, will visit Kiev on Sunday to talk to the Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. The visit, which will also include US Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin, will be the first official trip by US government officials since Russia began its invasion of the country of Ukraine. Also, as well, Volodymyr Zelensky calls for an immediate meeting with Russian President Vladimir Putin. Ugh. To me, Zach, do you think President Putin of Russia will ever meet Volodymyr Zelensky of Ukraine? Because at the moment, it seems like these two are their worst enemies.
Yeah, I don't see that happening at any time in the short term, Charlie. No doubt about it. I don't see that happening at the moment. Russians are still trying to achieve what their aims are, is to basically what they call denazify Ukraine, which obviously is not true because there's nothing Nazism about Ukraine at all. It's really to take over Eastern Donbass, Charlie, and all the regions there at the moment. So whilst this is ongoing, Charlie, I don't think the Ukrainians are interested in a high-level meeting with Putin at the moment. I think it's clear that they're not interested in that sort of high-level meeting, Charlie. So we have to remember that. But what is clear to me is that Russia will continue for a little bit. They may stop after a certain day. I mean, there's certain in Russia that they do it every year in May. They may want to achieve something before then. Whether that's right or not, I don't know, Charlie. I mean, with the amount they've been sort of been put back by the Ukrainians, I can't see that happening. So, yeah, at the moment, I'm starting to believe the Ukrainians are getting better and better at each term, really, to be fair, Charlie, as well. So, yeah, I think as well, Charlie, that, there's still a while to go in this war. And I don't think we're going to see a Ukrainian-Russian president meet up anytime soon.
Oh, no, Zach, it's horrible because obviously Volodymyr Zelensky and Vladimir Putin, both enemies. We know Putin wants to assassinate the Ukrainian president, according to what he said in his speech on the 24th of February when he called for this special military operation of Ukraine, the Donbass region, as he called it. Well, is this special military operation proving successful? Not in my view. It's proving to be a natural disaster, which we will all recognise in history as a flawed invasion of a sovereign country of Ukraine. So that's all the latest news there. We're going to come on to the other news later on politics. I just want to quickly go over sport. Not much this week, but we did have a Formula One sprint today. I haven't seen the highlights, but I've read up about it. Max Verstappen and Red Bull claiming victory.
Yes, Charlie. It was. He managed to get it with 2 laps to go. It was Leclerc that started on pole for today's sprint. Sorry, no, it was Verstappen. Sorry, apologies. That claimed the pole. Verstappen got a poor. Leclerc got a poor start. Verstappen got a poor start. I'm good. I'm mixing up my names here. Verstappen, who started on pole, got a poor start. And it allowed Leclerc to get ahead in the lead, Charlie. This is a 21-lap sprint, so there was no mandatory pit stops, no requirement to use 2 sets of tyres, do 2 different sets of tyres at the same time, Charlie. But nevertheless, Charlie, the tyre wear did come to factor it, because the Ferrari's Leclerc really did struggle towards the end on the soft tyre. Now, the fact they struggled with about 3 or 2 laps to go on lap 19, Charlie, suggests to me that these soft tyres are not lasting long. That's one of the main things that I caught my eye on today, Charlie. These soft tyres are definitely not lasting long. They are going to struggle for reliability, and I don't think it's a tyre that you really would want to go towards the end of the race on, Charlie. As proven by the Ferraris today, Charlie, Verstappen managed to save all his energy and his use until the end of the race, or end of the sprint, Charlie, to get those crucial 8 points at a victory. Leclerc has actually extended his lead in the championship because he was ahead of George Russell, and George Russell obviously failed to score any points today. So
we'll come on to Mercedes in a minute.
Yeah, shocking moments. I've had a shocker today as well. Let's go through the rest of the grid. It's a Ferrari and Red Bull occupying the top 4, by the way. Red Bull, Ferrari, Verstappen, Leclerc, Perez, and Carlos Sainz. That'll be very interesting to watch tomorrow, Charlie. It might be wet tomorrow. It may well be wet tomorrow, depending on what the weather is. There's about 40-60% chance of rain. It was a wet qualifying on the Friday, Charlie, which forced a few people's hands and screwed people.
Loads of red flags bought, I heard as well.
Yeah, Sainz crashed, screwed Mercedes up on the Friday qualifying. Sainz did much better today. He started 10th, worked his way up to 4th. Very good job for him. Proved that you can overtake on this circuit. Verstappen won. Obviously got 8 points. Leclerc was 2nd. That's how the top 2 will be tomorrow. Perez and Sainz in 3rd and 4th. It'll be interesting to see how the strategy works out, Charlie, between Red Bull and Ferrari. Because if it's a dry race, there'll be some very interesting intercontinental strategy. Will they mix strategies between the cars to see who comes out with top? Yeah. It'll be very interesting to see. McLaren 5th and 6th. They've had a good weekend, Charlie. Obviously, Lando Norris didn't finish 3rd and 4th. He finished 3rd in qualifying. Didn't stay there for the sprint. Didn't manage to fulfill the tyres, unfortunately. Couldn't keep up with the Ferraris, the Red Bulls. Ricciardo, good qualifying 6th as well. Bottas 7th. I think he'll be pleased with that, certainly, Charlie. Kevin Magnussen 8th. Magnussen was brilliant in Friday qualifying, 4th position, but went on the medium tyre, Charlie, and that Friday that wasn't the best tyre to warm up, and he struggled. Alonso was in 9th. Mick Schumacher 10th. I think Mick Schumacher will be pretty pleased with that, Charlie.
Yeah, definitely for Haas. Positive weekend.
Magnussen got the last point, by the way. George Russell, Mercedes, nowhere in the top 10. They failed to reach Q3, Charlie, for the first time since 2017. Mercedes did. They finished, I think it was 11th and 13th they were in Friday qualifying. It was 11th and 14th, Russell and Hamilton, respectively, in the sprint today. So they have got a lot of work to do, Charlie. And proportion is horrible, Charlie. You saw George Russell yesterday bouncing up and down, up and down.
Oh.
That's the worst bit of proportion I've seen all season long, Charlie. It was dreadful, absolutely dreadful. They've obviously, what they've done to fix this temporarily is to raise the ride height so that proportion is less. But what you do while raising the ride height is you lose speed. And that's where Mercedes are suffering, Charlie. They really are suffering, unfortunately. Yeah. And it's not
they'll hurt Monza, trust me.
That they will might have better race pace tomorrow, who knows? But I'm afraid, Charlie, they've been absolutely nowhere like they have been in the first 4 races of the season so far.
Yeah, Zach, and I know it's horrible. And obviously, the results here: Max Verstappen of Red Bull third, Charles Leclerc second for Ferrari, Sergio Perez third, Carlos Sainz fourth, two McLarens of Lando Norris, Daniel Ricciardo fifth and sixth, Valtteri Bottas seventh for Alfa Romeo, eighth Ken Magnussen for Haas, ninth Fernando Alonso for Alpine, 10th went by Mick Schumacher in the Haas as well. Only the top 8 score points in sprint. Mercedes only 11th and 14th. A horrible sprint. Let's hope tomorrow they can get better. Guan Yu Zhou was the only driver not classified. I think he crashed out, I think, by what I heard as well. So Guan Yu Zhou for Alfa Romeo, the non-finisher there. And also Aston Martin, Sebastian Vettel had a pretty decent qualifying, but unfortunately fell out of the points, fell out the top 10, should I say, 13th. So yeah, it's clear to me that Aston Martin's car is still pretty useless at the moment. Let's hope they can get a better race car at some point. But the race is on tomorrow. Please tune in to Sky Sports F1. The start will be, I think, 2 o'clock in the afternoon, I think. We'll double check that.
Correct.
2 o'clock in the afternoon tomorrow. Sky Sports F1 highlights will be on Channel 4 later that evening that you can go and watch. Moving on now from that, we're going to go on to NASCAR now and talk do a quick roundup of last week's Food City Dirt race, which was won, Zach, on the last lap of the race.
Oh, it certainly was, Charlie. It certainly was. The Food City 500 was won by Christopher. Not Christopher Dale. Sorry, I'm looking at qualifying for tomorrow. It was won by Kyle Busch in the 18 on the very last lap, overtaking Tyler Reddick in the very last lap, Charlie, to win the race and get 52 points, crucially, Ty. Joe Logano finished third behind, Kyle Larson fourth, Ryan Blaney was fifth, Alex Bowman sixth, Christopher Bell seventh, Chase eighth, Michael McDowell ninth, Tigan 10th. Very exciting race overall, Ty, no doubt about it as well.
Wasn't there a crash on the last lap of that race, by what I heard?
I can't remember. There may well have been, Ty.
Yeah, I think there was a collision. I remember I read up once that I think Tyler Reddick came together with one of the runners. I think Ross Chastain it might have been, or Kevin. Actually, if it might be Kevin Harvick, I think one of them came together, and I think one of them dropped well down the order.
I think it was Harvick, Charlie, because Tyler Reddick finished second, actually. So, yeah, it would have been Kevin Harvick that would have fell down the order. In fact, I'm just trying to go through where Kevin Harvick actually finished. He finished 34th for the DNF, Charlie. JJA, Austin Dillon, Kurt Busch, Ross Chastain, Kevin Harvick, Denny Hamlin, and Justin Allgaier were the retirements in that race, Charlie. In that one who crashed out or had issues. So, yeah, Tyler Reddick was the one that managed to get scathed off, finishing second. Kyle Busch, though, was the victor in that one, Charlie. Obviously, that Talladega today, Charlie, as well. Here's the qualifying, by the way, Charlie. Christopher Bell is on the pole position. Truex is in second. Daniel Hemrick is third. Daniel Suarez in fourth. Kyle Larson is fifth. Kurt Busch is sixth. Hamlin is seventh. Byron. Darrell Wallace Jr. is ninth. Good qualifying by Darrell Wallace Jr. As well. Bubba Wallace, thank you. Darrell, they could only know him as Darrell Wallace, but obviously he's known as Bubba Wallace as well. Tyler Reddick in 10th. As well, so that's the top 10 there. So it's Christopher Bell and Truex Jr. I don't think the front row is how it's going to finish, Charlie, because Talladega is a super speedway.
Yeah.
It's 500 miles. It's a bit like Daytona, and there's going to be probably big ones and a few crashes as well, Charlie. So I don't think the top 2 is how it's going to finish, Charlie, but we will see as well when they get to the race.
Yeah, we also have the Xfinity Series, the AG Pro 300 there in the top. Three on the grid, we have Jeffrey Earnhardt.
It's today, sorry. Yeah, my bad. It's today.
Jeffrey Earnhardt, Austin Hill, and Ty Gibbs that start top 3 on the grid in the Xfinity race. That's taking place this evening, 9 o'clock. And also, we're just going to double check Camping World Truck Series. Actually, no, let me check Pinty's Dirt Race. No, that is not at Talladega this weekend. That's back, I believe, on the 7th of May. That's at Darlington, the next meeting for the truck series. So no No Camping World Truck Series meeting, but the Xfinity and Cup Series are racing this weekend. The Xfinity race is actually on, I think now. I don't know actually. I'm not double.
It
Just
may
double
not be
checking.
now. It may just be starting, Charlie. So
Yeah, we'll keep you updated on the Xfinity race at some point. So yeah, we'll keep you updated on that. Now though, we're going to move on to Charlie's. We'll go to Charlie's good news next. I just want to do. It's only going to be a very short good news update this week. Not going to last very long at all. And it's been announced local news coming from Canvey Island in Essex is going to boast up to more than £40 million will be funded by the government to improve Canvey Island's defence is. And while the works are ongoing, access to the island's beaches may become restricted. The Environment Agency, which is responsible for the UK's flood defences, has confirmed the cost of works to revamp the Canvey's crumbling 3.2 kilometre concrete shoreline sloping structures known as retrievement. The government agency aims to have the work finished by summer of 2024, pending Castle Point Council approval of the scheme. A spokesperson of the agency said public access beaches may need to be restricted at time, but is currently planning to carry out work sometimes with lowest demand. It's not expected roads will be closed, but the public footpath on the tidal defence may be temporarily closed times. The works, which will be carried out in phases to reduce the disruption to the community and tourism industry, will be fitted into low tide window, meaning work will take place at approximate, should I say, 5-hour period between 6 a.m. and 10 p.m. The area has a long history of the flooding. In 1953, the Great Flood caused by the tidal surge and the storms in North Sea claimed 59 lives. Yeah, that is Canvey Island's flood defences on Charlie's Good News this week.
Good.
Moving on now from that to this. We're going to stay on. We're going to go back to the normal. We're going to talk about papers in a minute because, Zach, the other day, dominating newspaper headlines was the interview between Donald Trump and Piers Morgan. And I'll tell you what, obviously, we're probably going to both have different opinions on this because obviously we're both very differently. Obviously, guys, if you do know I watch, so you do know, obviously, I am a Trump supporter. But I know, Zach, for many people, obviously, you support Joe Biden. And obviously, this is why this segment's all about free speech. And I promote free speech on my show. Zach, what did you take away from the interview between Trump and Morgan for Piers' new show, Piers Morgan Uncensored?
wow. Okay. So first of all, when I first saw the trailer, right, okay, and I'm thinking, oh, for heaven's sake, it's Donald Trump again. And then we watched the trailer, Charlie, and thinking, okay, this could be a bit more dramatic than what's really going to be, what really the interview would be. Normally we think of Piers Morgan and Donald Trump, you think it would be a softball matey interview and all that sort of thing. The trailer made out that it wasn't going to be a softball interview, Charlie, towards the end. It appears that there's a lot of tension, there's a lot of even arguments, and even looks like a walkout, Charlie, by Donald Trump in the interview. As well. Now, whether that's true or not, we don't know. There's been a bit of conflicting reports on that. NBC have got audio saying that actually it was actually a good interview. They didn't actually walk up. They actually Trump thanked Piers for the interview. We don't know whether that's true or not, Charlie. We do not know whether that's true or not. The audio suggests it may well not be the case that the trailer was deceitfully edited as well. But looking at the trailer, Charlie, I'm actually going to watch this because it's obviously a new channel, Charlie, because it's Talk TV. It's Rupert Murdoch's Talk TV, by the way. They're bringing the best of talk radio as a radio station into television, and they're also bringing their own input as well, their own original input. So 7 p.m. is going to be Tom Newton-Dunn's going to launch the daily politics and news show. 8 p.m. is Piers Morgan Uncensored, where we're going to see the first of the the Donald Trump interviews. It's I have to say, it looks pretty interesting. We'll see whether it's deceitfully edited or not, those that interview or not. And then I think from 9 p.m. it's Sharon Osbourne. Sharon Osbourne is a bit of a left field choice, but it sounds like it's going to be sort of a format similar to the 5 on Fox or anything like that, where they talk about all the big issues and stuff like that. And then I think from 10 p.m. it's going to be Daisy McAndrew from Monday, I believe, to Wednesday, and then I think from Thursday to Saturday, it's going to be James Whale, normally the talk radio presenter, as well. It's going to be on for an hour, and then I believe they're repeating Piers Morgan at 11 p.m. as well, those days as well. And then I think from Saturday it's the simulcast of talk radio, but they also have the television on as well, so they'll be record. That will be from there. But yeah, Piers Morgan's one's been the one that's got attention. It actually dominated the Sun front page, and I think it was the Friday.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah,
certainly dominated the front page there. Piers Morgan actually written an article in the Sun about it. His interview. He explains that Donald Trump saw some of the tweets that he put out regarding him and January the 6th. Apparently, Piers was saying was saying that Donald Trump was going through the stuff that Piers put out of him, and it got pretty treacherous to the point where there nearly wasn't an interview beforehand, Charlie. Before there apparently wasn't even an interview. They nearly didn't go ahead of an interview because of what Trump saw. But yeah, so in some ways, Charlie, it was quite contentious from what Piers was saying beforehand. Whether that is true or not, when they get into the actual footage, which is going to be shown across Monday and Tuesday, Charlie, we will have to see anyway, Charlie. So yeah, it's gonna be very interesting, Charlie.
Yeah.
What the interview is like? It's launching Monday, I think 8 p.m. is going to be the interview on Talk TV. It's Piers Morgan Uncensored, and Talk TV will be launching, I believe, 7 p.m. On Monday, which with Tom Newton Dunn and the news desk, Charlie. They've got 11. They've signed up 11 panelists, and you'll see different ones each day.
It sounds like a good station, except some of it is left wing. If I'm honest with you, James Whale, bringing him in, he never supported Brexit. He wrote Remain, I know that for sure. And Piers Morgan, I only agree with him on Harry and Meghan. The rest of it, for me, again, used to be on Good Morning Britain. And actually, Lorraine interview didn't go down. He clearly hates ITV because Lorraine, he stormed out of another interview. Let alone everything Piers Morgan storming out in the Lorraine interview clearly shows that he's lost faith with being interviewed by whoever. He obviously hates our British media. There you go. But yes, on Monday, guys, Talk TV launching Piers Morgan Uncensored. This show, I don't know whether it'll be any good or not, but all you can say, guys, is that. And also, do you agree that the headline Grumpy Trumpy from the Sun is fake news? Please let me know down in the comments, because it's clear to me that we want you guys to have your say on the issues that matter. Now it's time for the latest news on our newspapers now. Paper review coming up right now for you, plus a look also at tomorrow's papers as well. Here comes a look at tonight's and tomorrow's newspapers. So the day's headlines going through right now. Here we go. So this is, apologies again. The papers do not seem to be coming up. We will get them up for you right now. I will try and find my list here for you guys. Here we go. Saturday's front page, national front pages. Let's see if they do come up this week. We do have a backup if we need to. Here we go. Yes, we've got them up. Perfect. The Guardian goes for the headline, New Danger for Prime Minister over Partygate. He admitted that he attended a May 2020 garden party for about 20 minutes, but believed implicitly it was a work event. God, how many memes about that? Trust me. The Eye Weekend goes, Johnson fears avalanche of fines as Tory unrest grows. It's clear to do that. Civil unrest in the Tory cabinet. The Sun goes for the headline, Manchester United's Harry Maguire threatened with bomb attack on his house if he didn't quit the club. The Daily Telegraph goes, France and Germany sold arms to Russia, according to the EU analysis shared with the Telegraph. It claims that £230 million of gear was sold despite embargo imposed after Moscow's 2014 annexation of Crimea. The Daily Mail goes for the headline, the Prime Minister's formulating plan to supply tanks to Ukraine to try and repel Russia's new easing offensive. The headline, Boris, I'll send in your tanks. That's on Daily Mail. The Financial Times weekend goes for pound sinks the lowest since 2020 as high street sales punch, plus the French presidential election between Emmanuel Macron and Marine Le Pen. The Daily Mirror goes for the headline, the man named this week as the official suspect of Madeleine McCann's disappearance and has been questioned over the case. And the Times goes with the headline, the Health Secretary is to launch an inquiry into concerns that vulnerable children who question their gender identity are wrongly being given hormone treatment. That's Javid inquiry into gender treatment for children. That's not Matt Hancock, that's the current Health Secretary, Sajid Javid. So what do you make to the latest newspaper headlines?
Yes, sorry, Charlie, I was back. I was called briefly. Then let's go to the start. What's the first one? Right, it appears to be The Guardian. This is obviously talking about the danger of Partygate. There's the fact that there's another, obviously the police investigation is still continuing, Charlie. The police are not publicly revealing any fines at the moment, Charlie, because we're now in a in a local election campaign, and it will be illegal for the Met Police to announce any fines that could potentially interfere with the political landscape at the moment during an election period, Charlie. So there's not going to be any fines until after the election. But one of the focuses now, Charlie, is on, I think it was on the May the 20th one, the Bring Your Own Booze party, Charlie, where the Martin Reynolds invited people to bring their own booze. Prime Minister was there for about 20 minutes. It appears that fines are starting to go out for that party now, Charlie, not publicly announced by the Met Police, but behind the scenes sources are saying they're starting to be giving out fixed penalty notices for that. The PM was in attendance of that. Apparently he's not been fined yet, according to the Downing Street. We'll see whether that's been changed, whether that changes yet, Charlie, whether that comes along the line. There's potentially for 2-3 more fines potential for the Prime Minister as well. The Eye Weekend goes for, this is obviously the Saturday front page, Johnson fears of allurge of fines the Tory unrest grows. This is the fact that, Steve Baker, Mark Harper, Charlie. Steve Baker is an interesting one because he flip-flopped 24 hours before he announced he called for Johnson to go. He sort of was a bit, using religious meanings as a way to say sorry and everything like that for Boris and that sort of thing. They obviously heard what his constituents had to say, and they were pretty angry. And Baker called for Johnson to go. So that's the unrest, Charlie. Avalanche of fines could be reference to more fines coming their ways. The Sun goes for a different one. Quit Man United or die. This is the fact that Harry Maguire, Charlie, received a bomb threat near his home. Very disgusting, Charlie. I mean, whether you don't like Harry Maguire as a player, it's completely disgusting.
It is disgusting, given Man U's poor form at the moment.
He was subject to a bomb threat, Charlie. Completely horrible and disgusting actions and really inappropriate overall. Whoever sent this bomb threat, it is totally not on. And that's just wrong. I mean, you can hate Harry Maguire as a player. You can disagree with as him as a football player, but no, bomb threats are just totally not on at all. The Telegraph is really a bit of an exclusive here, Charlie. They are saying that France and Germany have been selling arms to Russia during the middle of a crisis in Ukraine when they've been agreeing sanctions on them. If that is true, and that's not independently verified yet, Charlie, then that is terrible of France and Germany. I mean, Germany have received quite a lot of criticism. Olaf Scholz, the Prime Minister, has received a lot of criticism for some of his actions. One of them, for example, is not supporting an embargo on Russian oil and gas, potentially. He supports an embargo on coal, but not oil and gas. And he's been criticised quite a bit, Charlie, for not supporting a move like that as well in that instance. And I have to say, the reaction from home doesn't seem too impressive as well for Olaf Scholz. But that's shocking if that is true, Charlie, that they're sending arms to Russia. It's completely contradictory of the support that they should be giving to Ukraine. France is obviously facing an election period. I wonder if that could be used potentially against Macron, who, by the way, looks like he's going to win re-election tomorrow based on some of the polling that's still out there. It's all about turnout tomorrow and how big his victory margin is, but it looks like he will get a second term. The Daily Mail goes for Boris, I'll send in tanks. This is another basic announcement over the weekend that the Prime Minister is going to send in more aid to Ukraine as well, including some heavy arms weapons, Charlie, some tanks potentially as well, which that is important because those sort of things are crucial for for Russia, for Ukraine to use and during the second phase of the war as well. The FT weekend goes for something different. They're going for the pound sinking to the lowest level since 2020. This is because the consumer confidence index, Charlie, which is released now and then quarterly, Charlie, has sunk to its lowest level in years. It's actually lower now, Charlie, than the 2008 recession.
Oh.
And that is very bad, Charlie. That's forced the pound to sink very low. And this is serious, Charlie. For goodness sake, Charlie, this is serious because if the consumer confidence level is that low, Charlie, that means people are not going out spending. It's probably because of the tax increases.
Yeah.
People are saving budgets because the cost of living is so high that, people are not wanting to spend. They're all saving their budget. They're all saving, and instead trying to spend less on food, more, trying to go for the discount places. So they're going to, and they're not, because they want to preserve their money because interest rates are going up, taxes are going up, your gas and electricity's gone up as well. We're going to have more of this in the future as well, Charlie. And what this could lead is if the consumer confidence is low, Charlie, that means that growth is less, the economy shrinks well. And what that could lead, Charlie, I think there were some economists were saying that this could end up leading to recession, Charlie. I mean, we had a recession in 2020 when obviously COVID came. That was completely understandable. But if we're going to get recession because no one is wanting to buy things, Charlie, then that is shocking. And, that in political terms, Charlie, that looks extremely, extremely bad for the Conservative Party. That will be horrific. The public will not like that at all. I mean, they already don't like it as it is, Charlie, because Conservatives are now actually falling behind Labour on who will be best to handle the economy. And normally, when you think about it in electoral terms, who's normally head on the economy is normally going to win the election, Charlie. So there's normally a correlation between those two. And if they're behind in the economy, Charlie, wow, they're in serious trouble, the Conservative Party. But that is not a good sign if the pound is shrinking to lower level as well. What's the Mirror like? They say Maddie's suspect quids by Portuguese cops. So this is Madeleine McCann investigation. This has been going on for quite a long time, Charlie, this investigation. The latest development is that they have found another suspect in Portugal, and that he's been quizzed for the potentially Madeleine McCann's murder as well, Charlie, which obviously it's been years since we've got any meaningful news out of this. It looks like we've got some news out of it over the last couple of days, Charlie, which is important.
Yeah.
As well. So, yeah, that's important. And I think the Times as well. Javid has gone for Javid inquiry into gender treatment for children. So this is another one of those trans issues debates that's going on, Charlie. I should point out, this is another trans thing that's going on here, Charlie, because if I remember rightly, as well, what the Times is saying is, if I can get the front page up here as well, the Times is basically leading on the fact that they're going to launch a requirement into gender treatment for children. What Savage Javid is basically saying that the existing system is failing in children, and they are planning to overhaul how staff deal with those who question their gender identity as well. So, and he's linked it bizarrely to political fears over gender stereotypes, fears of racism, rather over grooming gangs, which is, I think, is a bizarre comparison. I get his point, but it's absurd, Charlie. It comparing trans right treatment to grooming gang is a little bit odd, quite frankly. I don't understand the comparison there, in my opinion, but nevertheless, he decided to make that comparison somehow, and yeah, that's what he went for some reason as a comparison. Is there any front pages coming out tomorrow, Charlie? Because it's probably gonna be that.
Let's
time.
have a look, because we have got honestly,
Doesn't-
we have some headlines here. Daily Star. I forgot to mention about this headline here. Beam me up, Potty, and the headline here: ex-astronaut to grow Percy's dope ever in outer space, and also on there, Vlad's
yeah, this is a weird one.
work from home.
Yeah, this is the Daily Star. Let's go this one. The Daily Star is reporting the former astronaut has said the purest medical grade marijuana could be grown in space. Charlie, so this is mentioned to marijuana being potentially grown in space. With demand growing as space tourism increases. So that's why they're going up, beaming up Potty. So that's a reference to marijuana and everything like that. I presume it's only those who go out to space can only be afforded by those who can actually afford it. So the demand is, I presume, is quite low on that front anyway.
Yeah.
I don't think the paper has come out for tomorrow yet. I've tried to check.
It doesn't look like we've got any papers for tomorrow, unfortunately. Just double checking. No, it seems like we haven't got any at the moment.
Yeah, as well. But yeah, so we're gonna have to wait until 10 p.m., 10:30 at the latest. Anyway, Charlie, for any newspapers to come out tomorrow. I'm sure we'll get some interesting headlines. Regardless, anyway, I think I've been called for my dessert, so I'll come back, Charlie.
Yeah,
and you continue on.
Yeah, that's fine, Zach. I'm gonna carry on with the rest of the show. There isn't actually that long left, but I will try and keep up to date with the headlines as they come in. As I said, guys, it's all about bringing you a bit of respect. And whilst I'm here, I'm actually going to play for you a short little excerpt of the interview that you're going to be seeing on YouTube, on telly. Piers Morgan interviewing Donald Trump. Just a little promo of what you're going to expect from this interview with Donald Trump. This is the interview in question. And boy, believe me, this interview is going to be pretty interesting indeed. Here is the promo in question. Trump and Morgan playing for you right now.
Former president in denial.
Okay, Piers, I'm ready.
A former president in denial.
I think I'm a very honest man, much more honest than you are.
Really?
Yeah.
He was afraid of that. You lost.
Only a fool would think.
You think I'm a
I do now. Yeah.
With respect, okay. With respect,
The legislature. Excuse me.
the most explosive interview of the year.
I don't think you will. This is
I'm
just
not like
very dishonest. Let's finish up the interview.
Morgan versus
Turn the
Trump.
camera off. Very dishonest.
Only on Talk TV.
That's Monday the 25th of April. Yes, Monday the 25th of April at 8 o'clock. You'll be able to watch Piers Morgan Uncensored on Talk TV. He'll be hosting his own show. That is also available on, I think, Sky News Australia as well, I think, if I remember. There is actually going to be various channel outputs you'll be able to see of Piers Morgan Uncensored. That interview will feature Donald Trump in it, former United States president. Apparently, both of them chatting about the 2020 election. That's still been stolen. We all know our views on that, so there we go. Now it's time for the Great British Star and Red Devil of the Week. And Zach, we're going to start with your nominations this week.
Yeah, false alarm, Charlie. They're not ready. My dessert's not ready yet, so I've come back up here quickly. So start with me first. My British Star, Charlie. I'm actually going to give it to a zookeeper. It's a bit bizarre that I pick a zookeeper, but I thought it'd be nice to pick a zookeeper, Charlie. I'm going to give it to the animal Gordon the Sloth, Charlie, in Sussex. Interesting, this one, actually, Charlie. This basically says this sloth has found an adorable relationship with its keeper, and it refuses to get out of bed unless they've had their morning cuddles and a zoo tour, Charlie. A morning cuddles, they refuse to get out of bed. I mean, that is so adorable. Nevertheless, Charlie, that is honestly, goodness me. His name is Gordon the Sloth. That's what the animal is called, Charlie. If I can find I'll try and find actually where I found this little slothy actually. I might have to get another window up. Here I am. There we go. Here it is. This is Gordon the Sloth. It's a lovely little animal. There's the owner, Amelia, takes him on a spin around the zoo every day, but he won't get up, Gordon the Sloth, and until he's had his morning cuddles and had a little tour of the zoo. So yeah, the owner, Amelia, gets the star of the week for me, and Gordon the Sloth as well, because it is actually a cute story, Charlie. It's genuinely incredibly cute as well, and they just, animal management is just so lovely in this Jurassic Park in Sussex. It's particularly amazing as well, Charlie. As well, I mean, the Red Devil for this week, Charlie. Well, for me, it's easy. I'm going to give it to the number 10 Whips because they've had a terrible week trying to manage their own MPs, Charlie. You think with their new operation of Chris Heaton-Harris and Chris Pincher as deputy whip, you'd think they have a better whip management. It's all new and fresh. They have a better relationship with MPs and everything like that. Appears not. They've failed all week trying to manage their own MPs. They've failed to read the mood of them. And they've had a disastrous week from trying to force MPs into kind of like an Owen Paterson Part 2, only for them to back down on the Thursday morning, 30 minutes before the vote, Charlie. It's been a terrible week for them as well. So number 10 Whips gets the Red Devil of the week for me.
Yeah, Zach. Now I'm going to start on mine. Plenty of nominations for me for the Great British Star. One of the nominations this week is going to be a very interesting one. And, well, should I say a nomination I'm going to give it to this week? You won't believe it's controversial. Priti Patel for the Migrant Plan. Finally, the numbers are slightly reduced in the channel. I do think, though, the policy is better. It is a plan we need to get in place to process illegal migrants. And certainly that's one of the things I give credit for is Priti Patel going up in Parliament and telling MPs that we need to solve the migrant crisis immediately and get this sorted. Another Great British Star this week, well, another one that I think has done a pretty good job. We're going to, you know what? The next nomination is going to be Lewis Hamilton getting a nomination this week, because apparently there's been rumours going around he could potentially buy Chelsea Football Club as well. I wouldn't usually nominate Lewis Hamilton for a Great British Star, but yeah, on this one, Serena Williams, both of them could be taking over Chelsea Football Club if the consortium goes through. So yes, we'll keep you updated on that. The Red Devils of this week for me, here we go. Theresa May gets a Red Devil. Not supporting the government's new plan to send migrants to Rwanda. That's another nomination there I'm going to give. Another nomination for the Red Devil. Well, let's be honest with you. Mad Vladimir Putin is going to get a nomination this week for complete hypocrisy on his invasion of Ukraine, complete lies he's telling. The fact that he claims Mariupol is a Russian city, it's not, it's Ukrainian. The plans that his invasion is still going wrong. We have seen more reports of mass executions in, say, Bucha, and also more reports of just general apartheid in Ukraine, should I say. 2 little Mariupol actresses have been killed the other day, and the Ukrainians have said 2 more Russian generals are killed. So I am not surprised that Russia are losing troops and generals in Ukraine. And one more nomination is going to go to Britain's Got Talent this week. Now, the reason I'm going to give Britain's Got Talent a Red Devil this week, if you watched last weekend's show, okay, you will know that 2 of the Golden Buzzer acts were famous. Now, the first act was Amanda Holden's Golden Buzzer, which was a singer from The Greatest Showman called Lauren Allard. Lauren Allard, her name is, I think. Oh no, yeah, something like that. Lauren Allard from The Greatest Showman. She sung Never Enough. By the way, she's an incredible singer. I'm not blaming her for that. But to have a golden buzzer for that, she's kind of going to probably go on and win the show. And then another one, Simon Cowell's golden buzzer, was Axel Blake, who is a comedian who apparently, by what we heard, has a show on Amazon Prime. Amazon. So it seems like to me, famous people. And then we had, of course, Titan the Robot appear, who used to be at Butlins Bob the Regis on Anton Deck's Saturday Night Takeaway. Is that what you make to some of my nominations?
The Britain's Got Talent was interesting because, you know, I know there's been a few famous acts. I'd be fair, I get bored when acts keep doing, you know, The Greatest Showman. It just feels a bit overused sometimes. I do hear enough of it, but it does get a bit boring when that happens as well. I must admit, like, it's overused a little bit, unfortunately, like The Greatest Showman and all that sort of things. I don't mind acts coming from elsewhere, Charlie. I just wish they're not too famous, if I would to say as well. The Theresa May one's interesting, you know. The Migrant Plan is it's good for the Conservative base, no doubt about it, Charlie. But it's the 11th most important issue in the country at the moment. So I don't think it's going to improve the views too much as well. And Lewis Hamilton buying Chelsea and Serena Williams for this is very interesting, Charlie. It is so fascinating. Potentially they could join the consortium effort as well. Considering the fact that Lewis Hamilton apparently is an Arsenal fan. Now that's rumoured he could be an Arsenal fan buying a Chelsea club. That's brave of him, nevertheless, Charlie. I think as well. It's interesting to see. You know, Lewis Hamilton has got plenty of money and interest of everyone else. I do not rule the possibility that he could be useful in this, Charlie. It'll be very interesting.
Indeed, Zach, I know. So yes, that's all I can say, guys. And that is the end of the show this week. Thank you so much for watching, everyone. But before I go, I'm going to start a new part of the show. I'm going to ask you guys a question every week at the end of the show, and you have to solve the answer for next week's show. And this is going to be on a news story that matters to you. This week's one is on football, and this week is a question for your asking. Do Manchester United need to rebuild with a new manager? Do you think Manchester United's new manager will rebuild their club? More on that question next week. We'll answer that at the start of the show next week. That is Charlie's big question. Should Manchester United rebuild their club and as the new manager is appointed? Thank you so much for watching, everyone. Take care, and we'll see you next week for the next episode, Charlie Tolhurst Show. Take care, everyone, and